Hey TechNation, welcome to this month's TechNation's Tool of the Trade live demo. I am really excited about this one because we're talking to one of my favorite companies, and we're going to talk with my friend Lucio of BC Group, and he's going to share a little more about the tool of the trade that was featured in the September issue of TechNation. If you haven't seen it, you can find a copy of it on our website, onetechnation.com. And if you flip over to page 41, you'll see a great write-up about the tool we're going to learn more on today, the IPA-3100. And Lucia is going to share with us why this is touted as the most compact, feature-dense, single-channel analyzer for the market. But first, I want to tell you a little more about BC Group International. Yes, this is a biomedical test equipment manufacturer and distributor. They have over 75 brands and products, and BC Group's flagship brand is the BC Biomedical. BC Group sells direct and through distributors, both domestically and internationally. And BC Group provides equipment to medical device manufacturers, independent service companies, and hospital, biomedical, and clinical engineer programs. I want to encourage all of our viewers today to take some time and learn more about today's sponsor. You can visit their website by going to bcgroupstore.com. Before we get started with the live demo, there are a couple of things that I want to remind our viewers. First, I'm sure you're eager to know how you can earn your CE credit from the ACI. Well, at the end of today's demo, 1 hour after today's demo, you're going to get an email. That email will contain a survey. Once you click the link and complete the survey, you will have the opportunity to download your certificate directly to your desktop. You can save it there or print it for your convenience. If you have any issues, you reach out to us at webinar@mdpublishing.com. At the end of today's broadcast, I'm going to remind you about that again. But I do have a special treat for you today. In your webinar dashboard, down at the bottom, there's a handout section. You'll see right now that there are 4 handouts that have been added for you. These are PDFs that you can download at your convenience during today's broadcast. 2 of these PDFs are from BC Group, and they're going to give you a little more information about the IPA-3100. Please take some time to download those PDFs. The other PDFs that you're going to find, one will be about the Tech Choice Awards. TechNation is so excited to bring this to the industry. This will be the first set of awards that is 100% nominated by and voted by the biomedical industry. We have no say in this, so please submit your nominations. There are 13 categories that we are looking for your feedback and the nominees that you think would be best represented or best recognized in these categories. Nominations are open to November 3rd, and then we're going to present the top couple of nominees for each category for the industry to vote on. The other PDF is going to be the pre-show planner for our upcoming MD Expo. It's going to be October 29 through 31 in Orlando, Florida. Registration is still open online. When we were having a meeting earlier this week, we had over 250 attendees that are already registered planning to join us. I know BC Group's going to be there, so make sure to save those dates. Look at the pre-show planner about some of the great education. Come join us in Florida. I mean, nothing better than Florida in October, so you can be nice and warm instead of cold and chilly. Of course, I want to tell you a little more about our speaker, and then we're going to get into the demo today. Reminder that we're wrapping up with a live Q&A. So while Lucio is telling you about the product, feel free. Go ahead and use your question feature on the dashboard. Send us your questions, anything that you want to know about this product, and at the end of the demo, we'll start working through those questions so you can get some real-time answers from today's expert. But let me tell you more about Lucio. Lucio Simoni holds a master's degree in computer engineering, and he's the vice president and BC Group's engineering business leader for nearly 30 years. He has led the design and development teams for almost every BC biomedical production that bears the BC logo. Lucio's key role is to continue to drive results by designing top quality test equipment for biomedical or for biomeds in this demanding marketplace. Lucio, I'm going to turn this over to you. Go ahead and tell us a little bit more about the IPA 3100.
All right, thank you very much. And also I want to say thank you to all of you for taking time out of your busy day to join us here today and explore this new product that we have for you. One of the things that we didn't mention here is that what we like to do here at BC Group is provide the best test equipment that we can for the biomeds, for you guys that are out there running this equipment every day and testing, and keeping people safe in our hospitals and in our medical world. So thank you all for being here, and thank you all for everything that you guys do. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the IPA-3100. So here we have the main screen of the unit, and I'm going to go ahead and move it around here so we can see the sides. On this side, we've got our power switch and our power input. We've got a charge indicator that tells us when we're charging the battery, which then also implies that we have an internal battery in this unit. So this is a lithium-ion battery, so you can do quite a bit of testing that you need to. We can see the battery life here on the main screen. So that's kind of unique. If you're familiar with the IPA-3100, that's a larger unit that does not have a battery. So we've taken that feedback and we've said, okay, here's a new product that's smaller. You can see it pretty much fits in the palm of my hand here. And we put in a battery so we can make it portable and mobile if we need to. We've got our input and output connections on the side over here. They're easy to get to and easy to connect to our infusion pump. And the pump that we're going to test today is the Alaris. Now I could have picked any infusion pump. This just happens to be one that's laying around. So, as we know, we've got our administration set that's loaded into the infusion pump. So what I'd like to do here is just give you an overview of the whole testing procedure, start to finish. It's a little bit informal, so we'll go through, all of the steps that we'll need to do. So right now I've got the administration set loaded, but it's completely empty. There's no water in here at all. Now, normally you would have to hold the bag up and let it drain and get the fluid into the administration set and get all the air out of here. But I'm going to show you a trick that we can do here with the 3100. It makes this kind of easy for us. So I go into the drain mode, and what that's going to do is first I have to release the clamp here to allow the fluid to flow. So I've opened the clamp, we can have fluid pass, and now what we'll see is, so all these little bubbles, and we're gonna get all of the air out of the line so that the infusion pump won't yell at us during testing. I'm sure you've run pumps before, and if they see any air, they get really unhappy. So we're gonna prime this tubing here by using the drain mode on the 3100. Now, you might ask, why would we have a drain mode? What's that for? When we disconnect our tubing and we're done testing, let's say we're going to store the unit or we're going to send it in for calibration, we would run this drain mode, and that gets all of the fluid out of the IPA-3100. But we can tack onto that function and use it to prime our tubing for us. So this makes this a little bit easier. Now, you may also note that sometimes bubbles like to get trapped into these fittings and anywhere we have connections. So we want to make sure that tubing is clear of bubbles. Now, I mentioned bubbles not because they affect the IPA-3100. We could care less about bubbles. We can pump bubbles all day long. But the infusion pump will yell at us if it sees air in the line, as it's supposed to. It's supposed to detect that. So I'm going to go ahead and load this. I'm going to say we're done draining because that's the function we used, was drain mode. So I'm going to go ahead and load the administration set into the pump, and now the pump is ready to go. I'll get this tubing out of the way here. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the pump, and now it's ready to go. So what are the things I want to test here? I need to do flow testing. I need to do occlusion testing. There's a lot of physical inspections and things that we have to do as well. But for now, let's just do a quick flow test. Okay. So I'm going to tell it that we're not a new patient, and we're going to test channel A. Now, on the pump, I have to configure what is my flow rate, what is my volume that I'm infusing. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the flow rate. We'll just do 200 milliliters per hour just to give a number, to have a setting in there. Now, on the IPA-3100, I have a similar configuration screen. Now, if I just want to take measurements and get a flow rate and get a volume delivered, I don't have to worry about setting the volume or flow. I don't have to worry about setting the duration. I can just go right into my testing and get measurements. So I'm going to show that here real quick. So we're going to proceed to the test. Now, remember, I primed the tubing by using the drain mode. So the IPA-3100 thinks that it's been drained, and it's going to say, well, before you can run a test, you need to prime. So I'm going to say, yep, we already primed. Hit that button there, and now it's ready to test. So the test screen at the top, it tells me I'm running a flow test, and it tells me it is ready to start. So I'm going to try and tweak in my focus here a little bit better. So now it's ready to start, and all I have to do is press the start button here. I don't have to worry, it's waiting for the flow. So as soon as the flow begins, then it's going to start measuring. So I'm going to press start on my pump, and here we go. We've got measurements, it's going. We've got elapsed time, we've got instantaneous flow, and we've got our average flow and average volume, the total volume delivered. Now it shows us the settings at the bottom, and we'll see that, I had 0 set for everything, but that's okay, because for this test, I just want measurements. I just want to measure the function of this pump and see how it's working. So we'll see that the calculated error is minus 100%, and it stays there. So if I want to just quickly run a test and get measurements, that's a quick way to do it. I don't have to worry about those settings. I'm going to go ahead and pause the pump here. Now I'm going to go in and show you. So now it's saved that record. I'm going to go back and say, what if we really want that information? I want to know, what's my percent error? How accurate is this pump? Is it performing like it should? So I can go into the settings here, and I could say we're going to set for 20 milliliters, and our flow rate is going to be 200 milliliters per hour. Now it has values to compare against. When it takes a measurement, it can compare what volume did I measure versus what did you have set, and what flow rate do I measure versus what is set. The duration, again, we can enter that information in if we want the test to automatically stop. So I have the option to stop when I measure 20 milliliters, or I can stop when I hit the volume or the duration. I can stop when I hit exactly 1 hour or whatever, however I have it configured. Or I can have it manually stop by selecting none. Now, the other option that we have on the screen here is the start mode. So we've got manual or auto. Now, what that does is what we saw before. I started the test, and the unit just waited. It was ready to go. I don't have to worry about when I start the pump. So it will start measuring as soon as it sees the flow coming from the pump. The other mode, manual, it will automatically start measuring time as soon as I hit start. So then you have to synchronize the start of the test with pressing the start button on the pump. We also have the option to put in information about the device under test. This will store, I can put in if I have an identification number for my pump, a tag number, the manufacturer model, all of that can be entered here, as well as who's doing the testing. So then I can enter information about my DUT. That's stored. We have onboard storage on the unit. It can store these test records, and that will be included in that record. But again, I can leave that blank if all I want to get is measurements. I proceed to the test again. I press the start button, and now it's saying the test is running. It's ready to go, and I'll restart, hit restart on the pump. And now we can see we're getting measurements for error in the volume and the flow rate. So those are 2 ways to run your test. If you just want to get quick measurements, just go in and run your test. You can enter in device information, and then you can also enter in your flow and volume, and it'll give you a percent error as it's running. Again, the settings at the bottom of the screen, that shows you how you configured the test. So you know exactly what's going to happen and what's going on with this test. We get our display at the top that's telling us it's running. Now, it's also going to lock us out from exiting the screen, because while it's running this test, it really needs to stay here and stay focused on this information here. But I'm going to go ahead and stop the test. Now, the other thing that's good to note, I can stop the test here, and I don't have to worry about the pump running into an occlusion alarm or stopping or anything like that. In the background, the flow is still running through the IPA-3100. It's just sitting in an idle mode. It's not taking any measurements. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the pump. And at this point, after we ran our test, we can look at the dispensed volume, we can look at the average flow rate, and compare that to our service manual to see if this pump is performing like it should. Okay, so that is flow testing. All right. Now, the other thing we need to do with our infusion pump is occlusion testing. So that's going to measure what is the pressure when the pump detects an occlusion. Again, we have two different start modes. We can either start manually when I hit the start button, that'll start the clock, or we can go to auto and it'll start the time when it detects that pressure change. So we can also put in information about the device we're testing, or we can just quickly go straight to our test. Now it's giving me a pressure measurement and it's ready to start. So the test, if I run the pump now, it's not going to get any data. I have to start the test, and now it's waiting for the pressure because I had it set to auto. So I'll go in and I'll start, wrong button, restart. There's a lot of buttons on this pump. So we'll go ahead and restart it. We can see the pressure rising, and it's telling us what time the peak pressure occurred. We get a live pressure, so now we can see after it stopped that pressure is dropping a little bit. And we're getting the peak pressure and what time that occurred. We can see that the pump detected that. And now in order to get this to stop yelling at me, I'll just hit the pause button. So we get the peak pressure, we get what time the peak occurred, and then the elapsed time for the total test. And now it's ready to run another test. We can run another one if we wanted to, start a new one here, and we restart the pump, and we can see what kind of consistency we have there. And again, we can compare that against the service manual for our pump and make sure that it's performing like it should. So those are quick and easy tests that we can run. Now you might say, this 3100 is giving me PSI. I really don't like PSI. I'd rather have millimeters of mercury. That's fine. We can do that. So we go back to the settings, our little gear at the front screen, and we can go into our measurement units. We have PSI, millimeters of mercury, millibars, and kilopascals available. So real easy way to change the setting. We can also change the brightness, or we can change the date and time. We can select the format for month, day, year, or day, month, year, whatever we prefer. We can also do autosave. So this will automatically save every record that I run. Now, if you're doing maintenance on pumps and you just want to do a quick check, maybe you don't want to save every record. So you can turn that off and then it'll prompt you to save at the end of your test. And then we have an option for Bluetooth. So we'll get into that here in a minute. We have Bluetooth. We can turn Bluetooth on and off. And we also have QR codes right here on the screen if I need to download MyBC Mobile to run testing through Bluetooth. We have Apple and Android devices here that we are compatible with. The other interesting information here, might as well point this out. We have the software version and firmware are directly on the screen here, as well as when the calibration is due. Now, as they get closer to that calibration due date, there will be a message that pops up on the screen saying your calibration is due soon. That way you can schedule it. You don't have to worry about being out of calibration or being in a panic to get the unit in for cal. Product information. This brings up either the product page, tells you more about the 3100 in general, or you can get a QR code and scan and go straight to the user manual right here on the screen. So then we go back to our home screen. If we want to see the data that we've collected, we've got a history of all those tests right here. So this shows that flow test that we ran. Again, if we entered information, it would show here about the infusion pump that we're testing. Gives you the settings as well as the measurements. And we can scroll through all of our test records if we want. But yeah, those are all the onboard test records that are on the unit are available there. And the pump is gonna keep beeping. Okay. So those are our main features of the IPA-3100. Now I mentioned Bluetooth and how that would work. So let's go into that right here. So now I've got my phone set up. It's running my BC Mobile. This is the starting screen here on the left. Let's see if my mouse is gonna work here. Okay, it's gonna cooperate. So now you can see what I'm clicking on, what I'm doing on the app. And again, the pump is going to keep beeping. I'll just turn it off for a second. I don't know if that's bothering you guys, but it won't stop. Anyway, okay, so now we're on my BC Mobile, and we can see here we have a list of assets that we can interact with. Everything is asset based, so we can either use a barcode, and now we can use the barcode scanner on our phone to scan a barcode that is on our instrument, or whoops, hit the wrong button there. Or we can go here and select it from a list. In this case, I have entered the Alaris pump that we're testing. We've got all of our information about that pump, and that shows up on the screen, and then we can say, yes, we're ready to test now. So then we have to select what device we're going to test. So we can see here, I have no IPA-3100 in my list. I can hit refresh, and that will, now I can see there's my 3100. That's the one I want. Again, if there's any question, we can confirm our serial number is shown here, 1004, and that is this unit here, 1004. Yes, thank you very much. That's the unit we want to test. So then it's gonna verify, are you sure this is the right asset? Again, if we store records for the wrong asset, that doesn't do us any good. So we can scroll through here and confirm all of this information is correct. We can make changes if we need to, but that shows me a confirmation of the asset. And then we go directly into testing at the bottom of the screen here. So this is very similar to the main screen on the 3100. Up at the top, I can either select flow testing or occlusion testing. So right here, we can do, how do we want to pick auto or manual? We can put in the information about what volume we're testing. So let's do our 20 milliliters. That's funny, I'm typing in on my computer, not on the phone. It's not gonna work too well if you don't put it in the right spot. Okay, so we can enter information about our flow rate. So I'll do that. Again, I'll show you what I'm doing by using my mouse. All right, so we've got our flow rate set, and then we can pick our end condition here, right? So we want to end, I'm just going to manually end. Then we go into the test, and the test has been sent. The configuration has been sent. We can say start, and then we can go over to our pump. And just like before, the test is ready to go. And all I have to do is get the pump configured and run the flow through the device, and it'll give me my measurement. And now it stopped yelling at me, but I have to put in all my settings again. It's kind of a trade-off. I'm sure you guys have the same issue. Do you want it to yell at you, or do you want to have to put in all the information again? Okay, so now we've got our test is running, we get our measurements, and we can see in my BC Mobile, the readings are also on my phone. I get instantaneous flow, average flow, volume delivered, and then all my settings down below as well. So I can either, stop the test on the IPA-3100, or I can stop it right here on my phone. And now there is my results. So I can save this test right here. So now that's saved to the database in the phone. And we can go through, I'll show you that here. If we go to our records on my phone, I can see this was a test. It was an IPA test. And we were testing an Alaris 8100. There's my record. So I can send that record either by email or text message to myself or whoever needs that information. We can send all of the records that are on our phone or just the ones that we need to by clicking on them. So then we can go back and run more testing. I'll show you the occlusion test. So at the top, we can select occlusion. That's the test we want to run. Is it a manual mode or auto mode? I like the auto mode just because it automatically synchronizes. And now we can see the screen on the 3100 has changed to occlusion because that's the test that I told it I wanted to run. And we resume the pump. Oh, that's right. I've got to give it more volume. I only hit 2 milliliters instead of 20. So we'll go ahead and restart that. And it's going to start pumping once I hit the start button, the real start button. And there we go. It's going to run the test. We're looking at our occlusion pressure. Just like our flow test, we get those readings on the screen in my BC Mobile. We get our current pressure up here. We get our peak pressure. And then we also have the time when that peak pressure occurred and the total time of the test. And the total time will just keep incrementing until we hit stop. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and get the pump to be quiet now. So again, if we do save and export, that will also give us this data file. So those are the actual readings that were taken during the test. I get a data file that I can email and later process that data or do whatever we need to with it. And again, those show up on the records on the main screen. There is IPA testing and all of the other records that we have. So that is brings me to the next point. We do have a built-in stylus. So you may see as you go in and you want to configure the device information, this data may be hard to enter with your hands, maybe you hit the wrong key or whatever. The stylus makes it easy to get exactly the information that you need. So we can clear all the current tests. So this is what came in when I ran the test from BC Mobile. It automatically sent that information to the 3100. But we do have a stylus as well. I think that is pretty much all of the features of the 3100, how to do all the testing that we need for flow and occlusion. We've kind of shown you how to do a quick test, or if I want my tolerance limits and get pass-fail results, we can do that as well. So at this point, I think it's a good time to open up the floor for questions and kind of make this go to our interactive portion where you guys can answer your questions and find out how we can meet your testing needs.
I love that, Lucio. While you were speaking, there were a couple of questions that did come in from attendees, but always like to take a time just to remind anyone that might have joined a bit late that this is your opportunity to ask questions about the product we're demoing today. You can ask questions by using the question feature on your webinar dashboard, or you can chat them over to us. I will read them off to Lucio that way. But let's go ahead and start with a couple of these. First question that came in from an attendee, what is the maximum flow rate that can be measured?
Oh, good question. So that is 1,000 milliliters per hour, and that should meet most of the pumps that you're going to be testing.
Wonderful. And another attendee asked, what effect does an errant bubble have on the actual test, and will it invalidate the test and I will need to do a repeat?
That's a good question, actually. I meant to show that. So if we go back to our flow test, I'm going to go into a flow test here. 20, yeah. I'm going to turn on the pump. So what I can do is, well, first I could answer the question. No, bubbles don't affect the IPA-3100. So I'm sure you guys have been in the middle of a test and you're running 20 minutes or an hour or 24 hours, and this tubing. I mean, obviously the pump will throw an alarm if it sees an air bubble. But sometimes you get bubbles trapped on the outside, the patient end of the tubing, and they get clear and then they go through the equipment. So what we can do is ignore those bubbles, and I'm going to demonstrate that here. I actually brought my fittings here, so I'm going to put in a T after the infusion pump. So again, we don't want the pump to have an alarm. But what happens if you thought you cleared your tubing and just a stray bubble comes running through? What's that going to do to your test? So I'm going to put in a T. I don't know if this is, apologize for the camera floating around here. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so we can see what's going on here. So I've got a T in the line after the infusion pump. And maybe if I zoom out a little bit here too. Yeah, so here's my T. It's funny, I've got the cameras, I can't see exactly what's in the middle. But anyway, I'm going to hook up a syringe. So I'm going to force a bubble into the test, and we'll see that bubble flow down into the 3100, and we'll see what happens during that test. So this is a good question. We're ready to start. I'm going to run the test. We're going to start. Flow test is ready. So I'm going to set the pump. And I'll just do the same settings we had before. 200, good enough. And we're going to start that. So now I've got my valve set to turn off the syringe. Oh, here's a bubble here running in. You can see that bubble's going in. But I'm going to go ahead and inject another bubble in the middle here. So I'm going to connect. Oh, if I can do this right. Got to get this. Okay, so there's a nice big bubble. So we can see this air going in to the IPA-3100. And let's see if I can get that glare off the screen. Of course not. That would be too easy. If I get in a little closer. So now we can see there's no alarm. There's no problem. We should actually see that air bubble working its way out of the drain tubing here in a second. So yeah, everything continues to run. No problem. And that's based on the technology that's inside the 3100. It's not looking for an edge of fluid. It's not looking for a bubble tracking. So bubbles really have no effect. So.
One of my favorite part of these live demos that sometimes the questions can get us into even more of a deep dive of what this product
Right.
do biomed in the industry.
There it
couple
is. Yeah, so I don't want to say just take my word for it. Here it is. It's actually running. It's doing it. So it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to actually see it in action.
I
So
love that.
sorry.
A couple of more questions have come in. Let's see if we can get through a few more today. One attendee wants to know if they can test syringe pumps with this unit.
Oh, yes, actually. As a matter of fact, I was using a syringe to push in the air. But yes, you can test any type of pump, syringe pumps, the infusion pumps. The only thing that we can't do is bolus testing. So if you have or PCA, if you have those tests where you're trying to measure a bolus volume and number of bolus deliveries and the time in between bolus, you really need to use the IPA-3400 for that. It's got more horsepower.
Good to know. And this one has to do with the OEM, the piece of equipment that we're looking at. This specific biomed would like to use your equipment in the shop, but due to Alaris writing in their manuals that using these types of test equipment is not recommended. Any advice, any feedback? Have you spoken with Alaris about making a change there?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah, the OEM manufacturers are always eager to talk to the equipment manufacturers, but what we did with the IPA 3400 is, the test form says for the Alaris says you got to measure grams, right? So in the 3400, we did put in a way to get a grams equivalency. Basically, we do a density conversion. You give it your conversion factor for your standard temperature and pressure, and the 3400 will give you grams as well as milliliters. So that way, if you want to use it for testing the Alaris, you can.
Great. Another attendee wanted to know if you could navigate back to the QR codes that you were sharing
Oh,
and
sure.
those again.
Absolutely. So if we're in the settings screen, we have my BC Mobile is here. I don't know if that'll show up through the camera. It might. That'd be kind of neat. These are also available on our web store at bcgroupstore.com. So these are the QR codes for my BC Mobile. And then we also have the device information. We have the product page and the user manual available there. Again, trying to get that focus to come in really good. But these should also be in the handouts that were available at the bottom, the 4 handouts.
Well, that is a great segue that I can remind all of our attendees today that on your webinar dashboard, on your computer screen, there will be a handout section. In that section, you'll find 2 PDFs that BC Group did provide today. Please take some time and download those. And of course, Lucia shared the URL. Do visit bcgroupstore.com. Lucia, is there anything else you want to share about the product before we wrap up today?
I can't think of anything.
I love that. Well, this was a very thorough demo. I enjoyed learning more about the IPA 3100. Of course, we're recording this, so we're going to put it on TechNation TV as well as the on-demand archives and Webinar Wednesday. If you want to find either of those, you can go to webinarwednesday.live. That's where you'll find our ongoing calendar of upcoming webinars as well as our on-demand archives. You can earn CE credits by viewing live webinars or recorded webinars. BC Group had a great webinar in August, so be sure to be on the lookout for that in the on-demand archives. And of course, TechNation podcasts are housed there as well. TechNation TV, that's our YouTube channel. We've got lots of video and content there. You can find it by just typing in TechNation TV at technation.tv into your browser. It'll take you right to our YouTube channel. Always like to remind our attendees, the easiest way to get your CE certificate today is wait 1 hour from right now, because you're going to get an email, and in that email you will have a link that will take you to today's survey. Once you finish today's survey, you'll have the opportunity to download and print your CE certificate right there on your desktop. You can save it to your mobile device too. We're going to be back next month with another Tools of the Trade live demo, but be sure if you're joining us at MD Expo Orlando to look on the schedule on October 31st from 8 a.m. to 10:30. We are having a Tools of the Trade live at MD Expo. This will give you the opportunity to meet with a couple of companies like BC Group and get some more hands-on opportunities to really demo these products, get an idea of how they're going to work for you in the shop, and of course, ask some questions the experts that will be there. As always, we look forward to bringing you more and more industry news to help you be the best that you can be. Stay tuned to webinarwednesday.live for more information and details on the next Tools of the Trade Live. Lucio, I appreciate you so much. We will talk soon. TechNation, we'll see you back next week.
All right, thanks everybody.